Merry Christmas, crafty friends. Today I'm going to be focusing on snow, and particularly snow made with distress products. I had a lot of different types of snow and icy effects and things like that that I used this season when I was making samples for the various Tim Holtz brands holiday releases. And so I thought I would start off all of my holiday sample blog posts with kind of this general post about how to make snow, how to keep it white, and some different things like that. And these are just things that I have learned and that work for me. As always, things are going to probably be different with the different substrates and maybe even climate or whatever it is that we each have. So I'm just going to show you what has worked for me and what I've found to be the most effective, and even some fails. And then, hopefully that will be helpful to me to kind of go over it, and also for you as you see kind of what some products do and how they react with each other. To make snow, the things that I always like to have on hand before I start making for the holidays, I like to have Glossy Accents, translucent grit paste, Collage medium, mica flakes, distress clear rock candy crackle paint, clear rock candy distress glitter, opaque grit paste, a glitter duster for my clear rock candy distress glitter. I am adding some perfect pearls just for the fun of it. And then this year I used a lot of the new distress crackle paste that has a little bit of a kind of a mica sparkle to it that was added. So the distress crackle paste and also the distress grit paste in the Snowfall. Those were released as part of the Ranger seasonal release. So if you got these, great. I will show on a few things how I used them, but because they're not part of the regular line, I will show you some things I attempted to try and make my own of these. I wasn't completely successful, but I will show you the outcome of that. So these are the things that I use to make snow. And then as we go through, I'll show you some stencils and some other ideology and some things that I use as well for my makes throughout the season. And then when I actually do my blog post for my seasonal makes, I will maybe kind of refer back to some of these, or you'll get to see it in a little bit more detail. So I hope that makes sense. Let's get started making some snow. Generally, the first thing that I will reach for when I am making snow on a project is the Distress Grit Paste Opaque, because that was the first thing that was available to us for this. And so it's kind of my go-to and the thing I reach for first. The second thing I reach for is the translucent grit paste, because that is now kind of a really fun thing to make a more icy looking snow than a white opaque snow. And then the third thing to make something look kind of sparkly and icy is the Distress Mica Flakes. And those I usually attach just with some Glossy Accents. And to make these a little more sparkly, I always dust them with the Distress Rock Candy glitter. So I have that in my glitter duster, and once I put it on, I usually spritz it. For these samples here, I did not glitter them. I just wanted to see how the opaque and the translucent grit pastes worked with Distress Spray Stain that had been set. It's the resins are dry and things like that. So I took some small swatch pieces of, this is just white heavy stock from Tim Holtz Distress White Heavy Stock. I cut it into little pieces, and then I sprayed each of the pieces with these different colors. Tumbled Glasses at the top, Weathered Wood, Peeled Paint, Vintage Photo, and Fired Brick. Then once I had the piece colored, I left part of it plain with just the stain, and then I used some resist spray, which is something I absolutely love. And this actually, I forgot to say this in the opening, but this is something you would also want for your winter makes, because you can just spray it and then dust it with glitter, and the glitter attaches to this, whether it's the the clear rock candy to give it kind of an icy effect, or if you wanted to use some of the gold platinum, you know, seasonal glitters, this is a great way to get it to stick to things. So Distress Resist Spray also seals, and so I used, I put like a stripe of resist spray on the stain, and then I used a stripe of Collage medium, and I also did a stripe of Distress Micro Glaze because this is supposed to seal as well. Then I didn't do any of this until all of the pieces had cured or dried completely. So I dried them with the heat tool, and then I actually left them overnight to dry, and I didn't come back until the next day to apply the grit paste. So let's see how that worked out. Now with the tumbled glass, you can see that the opaque stayed white, the translucent pretty much stayed white, but because it's translucent, whatever color is underneath is really going to affect how the translucent looks. So it does kind of have an icy see-through look. Like, now I'm from California, so I'm not positive that snow does that, but maybe this is the way snow actually looks for people who are in snowy areas. And then this is the Glossy Accents. So I just put some Glossy Accents and then put the mica flakes over it. And you can see that on all of them, the resist spray, whether it's plain, resist, microglaze, or collage medium, the tumbled glass really didn't have an effect. It didn't bleed through. So tumbled glass is a nice background if you're using it for a sky or something like that. Now, if you want your sky to be a little more stormy and you are doing weathered wood on something, well, that did bleed through on the portion where I didn't put anything to seal it. It kind of bled through a little bit, turned it a little kind of a grayish pink color on the opaque, and also the micro glaze. It bled through on the micro glaze, and the translucent turned kind of a little bit of a dirty color. So you probably want to be a little bit careful with the weathered wood if you're using that for a roof or a background. You want to use resist spray or collage medium according to this swatch and my climate here in Southern California. Those were the two best sealants for me. Also the peeled paint, because that's something that we use for trees and all kinds of things like that. So it really bled through on the plain and on the micro glaze. Again, it bled through. But the resist spray and the collage medium, it kept it white. So again, these two seem to be for my climate and my situation. They seem to be the best sealants for me. Same thing with Vintage Photo. You can see that they both turned orange with the micro glaze and with no sealant, but the resist spray and the collage medium both worked fairly well. And for the fired brick, we have pink and red, and pink and red, where we have micro glaze and no sealant, but the resist spray did pretty well. This looks a little lightly pink, and this looks a lightly pink. I think maybe if you went over it again with these, that you might have a better outcome. But red is just, red stain and red ink are really difficult to seal. I'll just, tell you that. So if you're going to be using red or something like that, I would probably recommend that you use something other than a stain or an ink for these. I will have pictures of these swatches on my blog so that I can show how these worked in my climate, and hopefully that will be helpful to you as you are choosing whatever medium that you're going to be using. Now, let me set this aside, because then I decided, well, what if I used some of the Ideology papers? So these three are Ideology craft stock, the brown, the rust color, and the brick color. And you can see that there was absolutely no bleeding of any sort with any of them. And you can kind of see how this translucent grit paste with the glitter on it looks really icy and snowy. This stayed nice and bright white on the, this is also craft stock. It's the pine color. And then I used two Ideology backdrops. This is a wood pattern, and then this is a wood pattern that looks like it had been painted red. And so both of those also stayed white, translucent, and it didn't bleed through on the mica flakes either. So I really felt like using maybe a printed paper like the craft stock or some of the backdrops is a great thing if you want to not have to worry about sealing it or going into any of that, and you just want to put some snow on it. This might be a great way to go depending on what you're making. If you're making something that you want colored and you know, maybe are afraid that you might have some of the bleeding come through like this, I think distress paints might be a better option. So I decided to do a distress paint swatch, and I used the same exact colors that I used of the inks. So you can see these are the same colors. These are just distress paints. And so with the tumbled glass, let me get up close. I did the same thing. So I just in a different order, sorry. But this was no sealant. This was micro glaze, resist spray, and collage medium. And you can see I really, again, same thing with the stains. You really don't need to do anything with the tumbled glass. It's a great background. With the weathered wood, you can see that with the paint, I didn't need to use any sealant either, but on the stain, only the resist spray and collage medium worked. And then if you look at the peeled paint, same thing. You really don't need to use any sealant like you do with the stain. Look at that vintage photo paint. No bleeding whatsoever. And even on the red paint, you have very little bleed through, just maybe the tiniest amount. And I think that probably once you got something on there, if you maybe did a second little coverage, that you would be really fine. But I mean, you really can't even see that there's any little tiny tinge of pink at all. So for me, I felt like if I was going to color something, that maybe paint is a better option for that. So again, these will be on my blog, and I hope that little view of snow on different mediums helps. Let me show you one thing on a make that I did last year with the Paper Village. And this make, I used an old type of paper called, it's called deco paper. Let me move this so I can get this down in here. And it was glittery, and it had these, you know, dots and stripes and things like that. And I thought, oh, that would be so cute for a little elf village. But I didn't realize it, the red kind of did a weird thing, and I don't know that it really, it kind of bled through. You can see how it kind of bled through onto the, it looks like I used opaque and maybe something translucent on there, but I can definitely see some opaque, grit paste. And then it looks like I did some, this is hot glue that I tried to make icicles with hot glue. So that stayed white, but then if you kind of look down here, see you have some bleeding there, and at the top you have some bleeding, and then down here on the sidewalk there's quite a bit. So I just thought I would kind of point that out, because not all papers are the same and not all inks on papers are the same. And so you really have to just kind of do some test swatches maybe before you make something. I thought this would work really well, but you know, it's okay. And I think it's still cute, so I'm keeping it around. All right, so let's move on to some other uses for snow or ways to make snow. All right, so let's just talk about kind of snow and icy effects. And the first thing I will tell you is that when I'm putting snow on something, I use two things. The first tool is my finger. So I will usually just dip into the paste, and I will just pounce it on some things, especially if it's just little things like, Here's one that I made a while ago. So I will use my finger and just kind of pounce it on the top. I found that's just really the easiest way oftentimes to get a little bit of something on there, on the snowflakes. Just use my finger and it's simple enough. If I want it to cover a lot of something, like say the top of this box, and to kind of make a little, hill for this North Pole, I will use a palette knife. And of course you're going to use that if you are using something like a stencil or something, which we'll go over in a little while. But if you, or if you're putting this on roofs and you need to get in between little areas, this is a great tool as well. So finger, palette knife, perfect tools for snow. The two things that Tim and Ranger released, one was this Crackle Paste Icicle. And as I said before, it seems to have a little bit of something sparkly in it. I'm not sure if that's like some very fine mica powder or, what exactly that is. And so I was thinking maybe Perfect Pearls would be great for when I run out of this, or if you didn't get any of this and you kind of wanted some of the same effect as the Crackle Icicle, then maybe you could make it with distressed Crackle paint in the clear and adding a little Perfect Pearls. So I thought I'd give it a try. This is the Icicle. And there's two things going on here. So the big cracking area that looks like cracked ice, which is what Tim and the Ranger Chemist were going for. That is just plain icicle, icicle Crackle paste. But this part where there's teeny tiny cracks, I actually sprayed some Distress Rock Candy glitter over it. I don't know if you can see it sparkling there, but that's what I did with that. And so that's why it's just super teeny tiny crackles on that. Over here, this is when I was talking earlier about sometimes when you're experimenting, sometimes you'll have things that work and sometimes you'll have things that maybe don't work as well. Okay, so I'm showing it to you. So this was my attempt to make my own Icicle Crackle paint or paste, and it didn't turn out all that great, but it's okay. I think I'll try it again. What I did was took some of this, I put a tiny bit of Perfect Pearls, apparently not tiny enough. So it needs to be the minutest amount of Perfect Pearls. And I mixed it. I have these plastic condiment cups with lids that I get at my Dollar Tree. And so I used my palette knife and I mixed the Perfect Pearls in with the Crackle paint, and then I spread it on. This side is just the Crackle paint with the Perfect Pearls, and this side, again, I spritzed some glitter on it. And so you can see it's bigger cracks over here, but not as big as this. See, this is really icy and cracky, and this is more crackly. And then when you put the glitter on it, it hardly even cracks at all. So it just looks, I don't know how that looks. Again, I'm not from a snowy area, so I'm not really sure if any of these are even what stuff looks like. Then later on, I tried it again, but with less. And so it cracked a little more and you could see through it a little bit more, but I really need to improve my technique of just the tiniest bit of Perfect Pearls. But even with that, like I said, it is more of a crackle and less of an ice crack effect. So, you're not going to get this exact look, but it's an option for something if you want to make something look icy. Here is one of the makes that I used the Icicle Crackle on. And so I put it all over the metallic oven for Eugene's Icebox. And I also put it all over the cookies. So you can see how it kind of crackled in there. And then I added a little bit of Distress ink to those. And the other thing I used it on for my seasonal makes is the TV showing Frosty the Snowman. So you can see how it cracked all in on the screen there. And so I used it on that as well as the rest of the TV. So on this, I put it on a little bit of acetate. So that's how it cracks on acetate. It reacts a little bit differently than it does on cardstock, because sometimes if it doesn't have anything to grip to, it will react a little bit differently, but I still really like the way that that came out. All right, the next thing that I did was, I love this Snowfall Grit Paste. It has the most amazing sparkly, translucent-y, icy look. So this is plain Snowfall Grit Paste right here. And then this has some glitter dusted on it. And I really love this both ways. It's amazing. Ignore this in the middle and ignore my bad manicure. That you can see I've been working on all this snow stuff. Okay, this, I tried to make my own Snowfall Grit Paste. And what I did was take the translucent grit paste. I put it in one of the little cups. I mixed in Clear Rock Candy Distress glitter, and it turned out not translucent. Yeah, it's obviously a very different look than that. And then I put a little bit of glitter on this side so you can see it's not the best. So then I added a little bit of Collage medium to try and thin it out and see if that would work, but I don't like that at all. So it was just too wet, and it does not have that icy, chunky look to it. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. So again, if you didn't get the Snowfall, I'm sorry, but you can try, just experiment again with what you have available and see if you can get something to work. I might just keep trying just in case. I ordered extras of these, but if I want to use them. And so if I use them all up, I thought, well, let's see if I can find something that will be comparable. So there you go. Those were my tries. And so I challenge you to kind of try on your own and see if you can come up with something as well. This isn't horrible. It just doesn't look like this. So let me show you, because I like to put the snow on things, and I absolutely love the way that Snowfall looks on this metal gate. So here I added a little bit of that distress glitter, and here is just the Snowfall. Look how icy and wonderful that is. It's really amazing. In the center, you can see this is where I added that type with the Collage medium, and I just don't like the way that it looks at all. And over here, we have the opaque, and then with a little glitter on the side, and just this is the translucent. I apologize. This is just the translucent with the glitter in it that I made over here. And then I spread a little glitter on top of it as well. And it's okay, but this is magical. So I have quite a few snowy backgrounds that I have made on things, and I like to use stencils for that, whether it be cards or whatever. And the one that I reach for the most, and mine is trimmed because I use this in vignette boxes as well. So I will stick this against the edge of a vignette box, and then I will run through it. So you need your palette knife, and I use translucent and opaque grit paste for these. Just depends on what I'm making. And so you want to spread it through and then pull it up. And then I usually go in and hit it with a glitter duster on top and let it dry. So the speckles is THS012. And so this is a very early stencil, and it's absolutely wonderful. You really should have this in your collection for making snowy backgrounds. Let me show you what this one looks like when it is. I used black, the Tim Holtz black craft stock for this, so it didn't bleed through. But let's go ahead and look at this. This is the opaque with glitter on it. And this is the translucent, and I really love the way this looks. Sometimes you may want something that is a little more bright as opposed to this more icy, snowy look. Okay, and you can see how that little bit of shine that the glitter gives really makes a huge difference. So this is the Speckle THS 021 stencil, and it's a great one to use. All right, let's look at another one that you could use. This was a recent release, and this is THS 130 in the large size and the mini size. I used the mini size today for the samples that I made. So if you want the mini, it is in a set of 3, and it is the number THMS 130. So the minis are always the same number, but they have M added because they are the mini stencil. All right, so hope that helps out. Now let's look at what this looks like. So THMS 130, you put it on, you can see it has this edge to it, kind of a corner. And this is what it looks like with the opaque and some glitter, and the translucent and some glitter. And I thought this would be fun to use with a window because it would look like it kind of built up in the corner a little bit. And so I thought, you know, this would kind of be fun. But, you know, you aren't using usually a cardstock background for a window. So I thought I would show you what it looks like with, let me get that. This is some acetate. And so you can kind of see that it just gives it like the snowy buildup on a window, or what I imagine a snowy buildup would look like on a window. So there you go. So these are the Halloween baseboard windows from the Tim Holtz Ideology release. But, you know, if you make your own using, you know, rectangle dies or something like that, yeah, a lot of fun. Or if you have the Sizzix window die. So that is THMS 130, and I used the mini for that snowy effect. All right, another stencil with a snowy effect is, this is a fun one. So this is THS 114, and it comes in the regular size or the mini, which is THMS 114. And these are like snow caps, and you can use these on cards and things like that. I will try and put a picture of a card that I used these on a couple of years ago. So I'm going to try and slip that in the video right now so that you can see. I had used inks, distress inks for the background and some things like that, and so I didn't want any bleed through, so I put snow on paper and then on cardstock, and then I cut these caps out and put them on the card. This one I used the large for my sample. So you just lay it down, you run your texture paste through it. When you pick it up, you go ahead and spritz it with some glitter, and then you have a glittery snow cap that you can use. So here's what it looks like with the translucent and with the opaque along the top. It's really a fun stencil to use. And for the card that I showed earlier, I used the mini stencil for that card. All right, and then if you are just making fun cards, fun backgrounds, whatever it may be, maybe you want some snowflakes for that. So let me grab this, some snowflakes, and I put this on acetate because, again, you might want it for a window. This stencil is THS 151 or THMS 151, and that's a fun one to do. For acetate, I tend to use the translucent as opposed to the opaque. So these are all done with translucent and then dusted with distress glitter. And lastly, there is this big snowy, icy snowflake one. THS 050 is the number for this one. And again, I used translucent grit paste and distress glitter for this one. And there you go. So that has really a fun, icy, wintry look as well. Okay, so that is using stencils for snowy effects. Now we're going to move into some 3D things. Let's begin with trees because they are something that we use most often during the winter holiday season. And so we generally spray them green, although, you will want to test it out with other colors. I'm sure if you're going to use, pink or blue or something like that. This one is pine needles, rustic wilderness, twisted citron, distress spray stains. And in order to color your trees, what you need to do is put them in your splat box. You spray them so that they get completely covered with the distress spray stain, and then you gently roll them in a paper towel to get off any excess. And then I usually go up and down to get any other extras off. Let it dry completely. So these dried. These were completely dry before I put, as with everything else, it's all been completely dry before I added any of the texture paste. So let's start off with the opaque grit paste. And this is one of the ones where I just put it on my finger and then I just tap it along the outside edge of the needles to get it to sit on there. And you can see that it stayed nice and white on the tips of those needles on the pine needles one. Also stayed nice and white on the rustic wilderness and as well on the twisted citron. So the opaque grit paste did a great job. And then of course you also want to spritz it while it's still wet with a bit of that distress glitter. The translucent grit paste did not do as well for me. I am not happy with it. So it immediately just soaked up, and I don't know, I'm sure it's a different things are used, of course, to make it because it's translucent, but for some reason it just really soaked up. It's not that it's showing through the green. If you look carefully, you can see it just pulled that color right up into it. So I will not be using translucent on my trees. I really like the opaque if I want white snow. If you want icy snow, you just take a little bit of the Glossy Accents or Collage medium. Either one will work. And you're going to put it on your finger and you're going to just tap it along the outside of the needles. And then you can either, if you're doing a whole tree, then you can just put some of the microflakes out on a piece of paper and just roll the tree in it gently and then let it dry. Or you can, sprinkle it on it and then let it dry. Put the excess leftover back into the microflake bottle or jar. And let me show you on one of my makes how I used that, because I didn't actually put anything except Collage medium and mica flakes on this one. I can turn this on because I just wanted it to have kind of an icy look, but I didn't want the snow to be the star of the show. And so that was important to me with this make for this seasonal release for Tim Holtz Ideology. So you can just see just little bits of that ice in there that give it kind of a wintry feeling, but it's not overtly snowy. Right, and even down in there on some of the little things. So that's just Distress Collage medium and a little bit of mica flakes for this one. Okay, let me put this aside because I'm going to go back over and just, remind you. So this was the opaque texture paste. This was the translucent texture paste. And this was the mica flakes with Collage medium or Glossy Accents to hold it on. I would recommend that if you are, whatever colors you're using, if you have an extra tree, to maybe, color it and try a couple of things on, one of your extra trees if you have it before you kind of commit. If you ended up doing something like this and you were like, yeah, I kind of don't like that, then at least you know you could probably go over it with the opaque and it would probably kind of cover that up a little bit more. It would be a super snowy tree, but I think that it would work and it would be fine. So there you go. That is snow on trees. This segment is about making snowballs. Snowballs are such a fun thing to include in your winter makes. And so there are several things that you can use to make the snowballs. One would be the baubles that come that are in the Ideology release every year. Absolutely love baubles. I don't even have a whole package of them, but you know, here's what I have left. So the baubles are kind of that pearly, the pearly baubles that we love to color with alcohol inks and things like that. And then this year for Halloween, Tim released the bubbles, which are the clear little balls and things like that. I love these so much. So they make totally different looking snowballs or things that you would put on trees. If you are going to use either the baubles or the bubbles with grit pastes, I recommend saving your baubles and bubbles. If you're going to use the snowballs with grit paste, like I'm going to do a demonstration in just a minute for that. And I really recommend maybe picking up something like cheap clear beads or clear pearl beads at a hobby store and using those instead if you're using the grit paste, because really, if you look, these are baubles with grit paste on them. And you know what? You can't even see the beautiful bauble underneath with the grit paste. So I would save my baubles for alcohol inks and things like that that are going to really show their true beauty. And the same thing with the bubbles. If you're going to use the pastes, maybe you want to use a clear, you know, something clear for that. Although it does look pretty cool. This is made with just Collage medium and glitter, and look how beautiful that is. And you can do the same thing with the baubles, just a little Collage medium and glitter, and you have a beautiful, just kind of icy, pearly, either snowball or something that you can use on a tree. So I'm going to show you that, but these are the snowballs I made with bubbles, and this is the translucent grit paste, and so you can kind of see through it. This looks like it would really hurt if you got hit with that. And then this one has the opaque texture paste, and so there are the snowballs with that, but you can also use them on a tree. And so on this tree, let me kind of move this a little bit. On this tree that I used on my Ebenezer Scrooge make, you can see that I have bubbles and baubles both on this tree. I thought that would be a fun thing to put on this tree just because I had both. And I really love just the different look of the pearl icy baubles next to the icy clear bubbles. So that's a way that you could kind of use those as well as just, you know, snowballs. And then over here, I wanted my snowman to look a little different than normal. And so I covered him with opaque texture paste and glitter. And then I covered some baubles with opaque texture paste and glitter. And so you can see that they're not see-through at all. They stayed very white, but still sparkly with all that glitter. So that's just a little bit of a different application to make the snowman snowy instead of painting him. All right, I am going to insert right here a little video I made previously on how I made these snowballs with the texture pastes and with the collage medium and the glitter. So I'm going to insert that right now so that you can see how I did that. Snowballs. So let's start with our opaque grit paste, because if we want to kind of make a snowball, one way that we can do it is that we can just take collage medium. Actually, I'll do that with a Let's do that with a bubble. Okay, so I'm going to take some Collage medium and pick up a bubble, and I'm going to just run it through in my fingers, and you can see that I got it covered. And then I'm going to put it in some clear rock candy distress, and I'm going to roll it around like that. And then what I end up with, and I would not usually pick this up with my fingers right now, I would just kind of roll it out on something, but there you have a really cool, whoa, icy snowball. Okay, so that is how you do those one way. Now you can do that with these baubles as well, and they are going to be already kind of like that creamy pearly color underneath. So you can do that with these as well. But I wanted to try something different and show you another technique with these, and that is that you can cover them. So I still have a little bit of Collage medium getting off there, but take the opaque grit paste and you can roll it around on there. And this is why I say, if you're going to do this, since it's covering up all the beautiful pearly bauble, that I would just use a cheap, maybe pearl bead or something from the hobby store. All right, let's look at what that one looks like. So this one you can see is like a very opaque snowball, as opposed to this kind of clear one over here. You can really see the difference there, can't you? And then let's try that same thing with a bubble and see if it looks any different since it's clear on the inside. It does look a little different because the base color is a little more clear. So that's kind of interesting. All right, I'm going to wipe the opaque texture paste off, and let's try the translucent and see what that looks like. So I'm going to cover these. And let's get that translucent out and see what that looks like on both of these. All right. Okay. And you can see it's kind of rough in texture on there. Put it in, roll it around. It's kind of cool looking. Let's see next to the opaque. It has a different shine to it. We'll see once they dry if there's a big difference or not. All right, let's try this one. Yeah, this one's going to be different. Again, because it is clear. Okay, I'm wiping that off. Let me close this. Let's see, I think this one was the... This one was the clear one. This one's opaque. You can kind of tell. And then this is translucent on the bubble. So these are very similar. The baubles are very similar, whether you use translucent or opaque. But here you go. So this one is just Collage medium. This one is translucent grit paste, and this one is the opaque grit paste. So it is a little more white. This one is a little more see-through, like that would hurt if you got hit with that. And then this one's just a little bit see-through. little bit translucent. So those are ways that you can make snowballs for your projects. Now, once you have made some of these, you can use them just kind of in different, little scenes maybe, but I decided to use them in another Halloween piece because they're part of Halloween, but I had quite a bit of Halloween left over. I ended up with several extra packets of cauldrons, and I thought, what could I use these cauldrons for Christmas? And so I decided that I would paint it red and green and use some of those snowballs to make an elf spa. And so this is a little elf spa, and it lights up, and I'll put some pictures on my blog of how it lights up. But I just thought that would be really fun to make like a little elf spa. And then to go with it, I made a little village elf spa house to go along with it. All right, and so that's kind of what they look like next to each other. I know it's hard to see, but that's my little elf house and elf spa. And then for the snow for this, I thought I would show you a little bit of how I did some of the snow. So the icicles are the manor house dye things that kind of stick up around the top of the manor house, and I just put them down, and then I will show on my blog, but I got them wet with my water brush and then pulled them down so that they weren't sticking out this way, because you'll see that they stick out that way when you put them on. But if you wet them, you can just kind of fold them down and they will look more like icicles. And then I take my palette knife, and I usually just kind of brush a little translucent grit paste where I think that snow would land, and then I glitter it. And so that's how I get it on there. And then I actually I didn't even put any texture on my roof. This is just the plain white roof. And I went ahead and just put the translucent grit paste all over it and on the chimney and back here on the little dormer, and then glittered it. And that's all there was to that. All right, so on each side, I have a little window with some snow on it as well. And then that just goes next to my elf spa. And I would, of course, put this on some sort of glittery background, glittery, snowy, base. And that's I could make a whole elf village again. All right, so that is what I did with some of the snowballs. All right, last but not least, another Halloween ideology thing I had left over were some drippy candles. I love these drippy candles so much, and so I use them all over in my Halloween mix, but I'm going to be using these all year long because everything needs a drippy candle. So I decided to kind of try and make them icy and snowy for this video, and what you need to do is that you need to paint them. So I was out, I didn't realize this, but I was almost completely out of picket fence paint, and I didn't have enough to even really cover these. So I painted them with distressed tumbled glass because that seems to be a good color for icy things. And then I went over it with a little bit of picket fence, and most of the blue showed through, which I really thought was okay because I thought it was kind of a fun blue icy look. Then I would have covered them with Crackle Paste Icicle, but I had a bunch left over of my attempt to make my own with the Crackle Paste and the Perfect Pearls. So you could do either, but I painted it, and I don't know if it's going to show up, but they are crackly and shiny so that they kind of look a little bit icy, like something you could put in, like that ice hotel that they have in some country. It's always on the Hallmark Channel. So I just thought that looked really cool. It could be, in a very cold house or outside next to a tree, something like that. So that's one way that you can turn the drippy candles into something you could use for Christmas. I have another, I'm going to put a picture in right here of something that I made last year with the Simon Says Stamp exclusive cardinal die. And then with the Tim Holtz arched window from Sizzix. And so I made some drippy candles that are wintry for that. And then this year I used for my Scrooge make. Let me see if I can turn on the light for you. And in this box for Christmas present, I took and I did the same thing. I painted my drippy candles white, and then I just covered them in Distress Collage Medium and Distress Rock Candy Glitter, so that they're all sparkly and white and wonderful for a wintry feeling window. So that's, again, how you can change them for different seasons. I can imagine that you could also make them, you know, pink and yellow and all kinds of wonderful colors for spring and summer makes. All right, my friends, that concludes my demo for snow, how to make it, how to keep it white, and some maybe different applications for things that were previously not wintry or snowy, but that you can turn into something that you can use for your winter makes. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, as always, please email me through my blog, and I will do my very best to let you know the answers if I know them. And don't be afraid to, you know, do what I did. Just, you know, get in there, do some swatches, give it a try, see what works, see what doesn't, and just have a lot of fun making some snow. I have a really fun giveaway that I would like to incorporate along with this video and this make. So if you will head over to my blog, you'll see all the details, and I hope that you will participate, because I would like to send some things out to help some of you make some snow of your own at home. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this very long blog post, and I will see you soon with the first of my Christmas makes.